I'm Alexandra Reeves, and 2 months ago I walked into my family's company headquarters to find my name freshly painted on the CEO's door, the same position my parents had handed to my younger brother on a silver platter just 1 year earlier. The look on everyone's faces when I stepped into that corner office was worth every sleepless night, every rejected proposal, and every family dinner I'd endured while being treated like the backup child. But let me start from the beginning, because how I got there, that's the real story. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Growing up as the eldest child of James and Catherine Reeves meant living with weighty expectations. Reeves Enterprises wasn't just a company, it was our legacy, a third-generation manufacturing firm that my grandfather had built from a small workshop into a regional powerhouse. By the time I was born, the company employed over 300 people and had annual revenues exceeding $40 million. Our family name was on buildings, scholarships, and charity foundations throughout the city. From my earliest memories, dinner conversation revolved around profit margins, market expansions, and strategic acquisitions. While other families discussed movies or vacation plans, we analyzed quarterly reports. My father would bring home stacks of documents, spreading them across our dining room table after plates were cleared, explaining complex business concepts as if they were bedtime stories. "One day, this will all be in your hands," he would tell, me tapping his finger on the company logo. "You need to understand every aspect of this business." I took those words to heart. While my friends were planning their weekends, I was interning in different departments of Reeves Enterprises during school breaks. When I turned 16, I spent my summer vacations learning inventory management, analyzing production inefficiencies, and shadowing floor managers. I absorbed everything, filling notebooks with observations and ideas. My father would review them with a critical eye, occasionally nodding in approval, but more often pointing out flaws in my thinking. "You're getting there, Alexandra," he would say, "but you need to see the bigger picture." Meanwhile, my brother Ethan, 3 years younger, showed little interest in the family business. While I was studying business journals, he was playing video games or hanging out with friends. When I'd earn a reluctant nod from our father for a well-considered suggestion, Ethan would receive effusive praise for simply showing up to a company event. The double standard was obvious, but I attributed it to the heightened expectations placed on me as the presumed successor. I excelled academically, graduating at the top of my class with a double major in business administration and economics. My thesis on sustainable manufacturing practices won a prestigious university award and was published in an industry journal. I declined offers from major consulting firms and top MBA programs, choosing instead to return home and begin my official career at Reeves Enterprises. "I want to learn the business from the ground up," I told my father, expecting him to be pleased with my dedication. He nodded, his expression thoughtful. "That's commendable, Alexandra. We'll start you in operations management. Marcus is retiring next year, so you'll have time to learn under him before potentially taking over that division." It was less enthusiasm than I'd hoped for, but I was determined to prove myself worthy of the legacy I'd been groomed to inherit. Over the next 5 years, I worked tirelessly, arriving first and leaving last, volunteering for challenging projects, and gradually implementing improvements that increased departmental efficiency by 23%. The operations team respected my work ethic and knowledge, though I could sense some reservation about my age and gender in an industry still dominated by men twice my age. When Marcus finally retired, I was prepared to step into his role as operations director. I'd created a comprehensive transition plan and had already been handling most of his responsibilities for months. The promotion seemed a foregone conclusion. The evening before the official announcement, my parents invited me to dinner at Castellini's, an upscale Italian restaurant reserved for special occasions. When I arrived, I found not just my parents, but also Ethan, who had graduated 2 years earlier with a communications degree and had been working half-heartedly in the marketing department. "There's our star," my father announced as I approached. The table. My mother beamed, and Ethan gave me a quick hug before we all sat down. "I ordered the 07 Barolo," my father said, gesturing to the wine being poured. "This calls for a proper celebration." My heart swelled with pride. Finally, all those years of dedication were being recognized. I'd proven myself not just as a daughter, but as a legitimate business leader. "I'll admit," my father continued, raising his glass, "I wasn't sure about this plan at first, but your mother convinced me it was time." We all raised our glasses, and my father turned to Ethan. "To the new operations director of Reeves Enterprises, may this be just the first step on your journey to leadership." The wine glass nearly slipped from my fingers as conversations around us continued uninterrupted, oblivious to the fact that my world had just imploded. Ethan looked momentarily surprised before breaking into a wide grin. "Thanks, Dad. I won't let you down." My mother reached across the table to squeeze my hand. "Alexandra will be there to guide you, won't you, dear? No one knows operations better." I nodded mechanically, unable to form words as the waiter arrived to take our orders. My father and Ethan immediately launched into an animated discussion about the department while I sat in stunned silence. "Your brother needs this opportunity," my mother whispered when my father and Ethan were distracted by the dessert menu. "He's struggling to find his place. You've always been so capable, so independent. Ethan needs more support to reach his potential." I excused myself to the restroom, where I locked myself in a stall and pressed my forehead against the cool, metal partition, fighting back tears of frustration and betrayal. 5 years of dedicated work, of proving myself over and over, and the position was simply handed to my brother because he needed it more. Because I was too capable, too independent. When I returned to the table, my composure restored though. My inside still churned with hurt and anger. The conversation had moved on to plans for restructuring the executive team. "We're thinking about creating a new position," my father was explaining. "Special Projects Manager. Something that would let you utilize your analytical skills across departments, Alexandra. A consolation prize, a made-up position to placate me while my less qualified, less dedicated brother stepped into the role I'd earned. The position that was supposed to be my stepping stone to eventually leading the company." "I appreciate the consideration," I replied, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. "But I'd like some time to think about it." My father frowned slightly. "Don't take too long. We'd like to announce both positions simultaneously next week." That night, I couldn't sleep. I paced my apartment, replaying years of memories, searching for signs I'd missed. Had I been deluding myself all along? Had the succession plan always been to position Ethan as the heir despite his minimal interest and mediocre contributions? Had my years of dedication been merely a convenient source of free labor and intellectual capital? By morning, I'd made my decision. I showered, dressed in my sharpest suit, and drove to Reeves Enterprises for what I expected might be one of my final days there. I requested a meeting with my father, who looked surprised but agreed to see me during his lunch break. "I've decided to decline the special projects position," I told him, sitting straight-backed in the chair across from his imposing desk. He set down his pen, his brow furrowing. "Is this because of Ethan's promotion? I thought we discussed this." "This isn't about what Ethan needs," I interrupted, something I rarely dared to do. "This is about what I've earned. I've dedicated my entire life to this company. I've worked harder, performed better, and contributed more than anyone else in my position. If that isn't enough to be recognized fairly, then perhaps my talents would be better appreciated elsewhere." My father's expression hardened. "Are you threatening to leave?" "I'm stating a fact. I won't accept a made-up position created out of pity or obligation. I deserve better than that, and we both know You've always been too headstrong for your own good, Alexandra. He sighed, leaning back in his chair. What exactly do you want? I want to be judged by my merits, not my birth order or gender. I want the opportunities I've earned. And if I say the decision about operations director is final, I met his gaze steadily. Then I'll tender my resignation, effective immediately. A moment of tense silence stretched between us before he spoke again. There's an opening for regional sales director. David Mills is retiring next month. The position would be a lateral move from operations director with similar compensation and authority. Is that something you'd consider? It wasn't what I had worked for, but it was a legitimate leadership position, not a consolation prize. More importantly, it would keep me in the executive pipeline. I'd need autonomy to implement my own strategies, I said, and a clear understanding of future advancement opportunities. He nodded slowly. You'd have the same autonomy as any other director. As for advancement, that would depend on performance, as it always has. We both knew that wasn't entirely true. Ethan's promotion had proven that, but it was as much of a concession as I was likely to get. I accept, I said, rising from my chair. I'll start transitioning my operations responsibilities to Ethan immediately. My father stood as well, extending his hand as if we'd just concluded a business negotiation rather than a painful family conversation. You'll make an excellent sales director, Alexandra. Your analytical skills will bring a fresh perspective to the department. I shook his hand firmly. Thank you for the opportunity. I won't disappoint you. As I turned to leave, he added, You know, your grandfather was the same way, determined to prove himself at all costs. It's what made him build this company, but it also made him difficult to live with sometimes. I paused at the door. Perhaps that determination is exactly what this company needs right now. The following weeks were a whirlwind of transitions. I handed over my operations projects to Ethan, who accepted my detailed briefings with a mixture of enthusiasm and thinly veiled anxiety. Meanwhile, I immersed myself in sales data, customer histories, and market analyses, preparing to take over from David Mills. At the company-wide announcement of the leadership changes, my father presented Ethan's promotion first, highlighting his fresh perspective and innovative thinking, code for his lack of experience being somehow advantageous. When he announced my move to sales, it was framed as a strategic redeployment of talent rather than the sideways move it actually was. The reactions were telling. Several longtime employees gave me sympathetic glances, clearly understanding what had happened. A few of the operations team members looked openly concerned about the department's future under Ethan's inexperienced leadership. My brother, meanwhile, stood beaming beside our father, already looking the part of the chosen successor in a new suit that mirrored our father's style. Congratulations, Laura Morris, the finance director who had been with the company for 20 years, whispered to me at the reception afterward, though I think we both know which department got the better end of this deal. I smiled tightly. Change can be good for everyone. Indeed, she replied, her eyes shrewd. And sometimes the longer path turns out to be the more interesting journey. Those words stayed with me as I settled into my new role. The sales department was larger than operations, with 32 staff spread across 4 regional offices. The team was also older on average, with several members having decades of experience, a potential challenge for a young female director coming from a different department. Rather than immediately asserting authority, I spent my first month listening and learning. I traveled to each regional office, meeting one-on-one with every team member, from senior account managers to administrative assistants. I asked about their challenges, their ideas for improvement, and their perceptions of what was working and what wasn't. No one's ever asked my opinion before, remarked Carlos Rodriguez, a veteran salesman who had been with Reeves Enterprises for 17 years. Mills just handed down quotas and expected us to meet them. "Well, you're the one talking to customers every day," I replied. "You probably have insights none of us in the main office have considered." This approach yielded valuable information and began building trust with the team. I discovered that our sales strategies hadn't evolved in years, despite significant changes in the market. Our pricing models were outdated, our customer relationship management software was cumbersome, and there was virtually no coordination between sales and product development. Meanwhile, I kept a watchful eye on operations. As I'd feared, Ethan was struggling. Without the institutional knowledge and technical understanding I'd developed over years, he was making decisions that looked good on paper, but created real-world problems. Production schedules were slipping, quality control issues were increasing, and staff morale was plummeting. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. 3 months into our new roles, the quarterly executive meeting revealed the consequences. Operations costs had increased by 11%, while output had decreased by 7%. My father frowned as he reviewed the numbers while Ethan shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "We're implementing new systems," my brother explained defensively. "There are always adjustment periods with major changes." I bit my tongue, resisting the urge to point out that many of these new systems were either unnecessary or poorly implemented versions of changes I'd already planned with careful transition strategies. When it came time for the sales report, I presented a comprehensive analysis of our current position and market opportunities, followed by a strategic plan to modernize our approach and increase revenue. "I've identified 3 key areas for improvement," I explained, distributing detailed documentation to each executive. "First, our pricing structure doesn't reflect current market realities. We're overpricing in some segments and leaving money on the table in others. Second, our customer relationship management needs significant modernization. And third, we need better alignment between sales feedback and product development." My father studied the materials with interest. "These are ambitious changes. What kind of timeline and resources would you need?" "I've outlined a phased implementation over 12 months, I replied. "The initial CRM upgrade would require capital investment, but my projections show it paying for itself within 9 months through improved efficiency and conversion rates." Laura from finance nodded approvingly as she reviewed my numbers. "These projections are conservative but well supported. I think they're achievable." By the end of the meeting, my plan had received tentative approval, pending final budget review. As we gathered our materials, I noticed my father watching me with an expression I couldn't quite interpret, something between surprise and calculation. Over the next 6 months, I threw myself into transforming the sales department. I implemented the new CRM system, retrained the entire team, revised our pricing strategies, and established formal channels for customer feedback to reach product development. The work was challenging, but energizing. For the first time since joining the company, I felt I was truly leading rather than just executing someone else's vision. The results began to show almost immediately. Our conversion rate on new leads increased by 22%. Several major clients who had been considering other suppliers renewed their contracts with improved terms. The sales team's morale soared as they embraced the new systems and saw their commission checks grow accordingly. Meanwhile, operations continued to struggle under Ethan's leadership. Production delays were becoming a serious issue, threatening our ability to deliver on the increased sales my department was generating. In executive meetings, the tension was palpable as my brother presented excuses rather than solutions. "Perhaps Alexandra could offer some guidance," my father suggested during a particularly difficult meeting, when a major production failure had caused us to miss a delivery deadline for our largest client, given her background in operations. Ethan's face flushed. "We don't need interference from sales. We're implementing a comprehensive turnaround strategy. It's not interference to collaborate between departments, I countered calmly. The success of this company depends on all divisions working together effectively. My father nodded. Alexandra is right. I want you two to work together on solving these production issues. We can't afford to lose clients because we can't deliver what we're selling. The meeting established a cross-departmental task force, which I would co-lead with Ethan, to address the operational challenges. It was a public acknowledgement of the problems under my brother's leadership and an implicit recognition that my expertise was needed to fix them. As we left the conference room, Laura fell into step beside me. Interesting development, she remarked quietly. Just doing what's best for the company, I replied. She smiled knowingly. Of course, and positioning yourself rather effectively in the process. Well played, Alexandra. I hadn't been consciously playing political games, but I couldn't deny that the situation was evolving in my favor. By excelling in sales while operations faltered under Ethan, I was creating a contrast that was impossible to ignore. The task force would only make that contrast more evident. Over the next 3 months, I devoted extra hours to the task force while continuing to lead sales to record-breaking quarters. I was careful to present all operational suggestions diplomatically, framing them as collaborative ideas rather than criticisms of Ethan's leadership. Nevertheless, as we implemented changes that gradually brought operations back on track, it became increasingly clear to everyone whose expertise was driving the improvements. At home, family dinners became increasingly tense. My parents avoided discussing work, creating artificial conversations about movies none of us had time to watch or vacation plans no one had made. Ethan grew withdrawn, his initial enthusiasm for his director role replaced by defensive irritability. "You're making me look bad on purpose," he accused one evening after my parents had left the dinner table. "I'm doing my job," I replied evenly, "and helping you do yours, when asked." "You've always been like this," he continued, his voice rising. "Always have to be the perfect one, the smart one. You couldn't just let me have this one thing." "This one thing is a multi-million-dollar company with hundreds of employees depending on it," I said, struggling to keep my tone measured. "It's not a trophy to be handed out based on who needs a confidence boost. It's a responsibility." "That's easy for you to say. Everything's always come easily to you." I stared at him, genuinely shocked by his perception. "Easily? I've worked myself to exhaustion for years to get where I am. Nothing was given to me, quite the opposite." "Right, because getting a director position at 30 is such a struggle." He stood abruptly. "You know what? Forget it. You clearly don't get it, and you never will." As he stormed out, I remained at the table, contemplating the gulf between our perceptions. Had Ethan always seen me as someone for whom success came easily, rather than through relentless effort? Had my parents fostered that belief? The thought was both enlightening and deeply saddening. 9 months after our role changes, the annual company performance review revealed the full impact of our divergent leadership styles. Sales had increased revenue by 31%, while reducing costs by 7%. Operations, despite the recent improvements from the task force, showed only marginal gains after months of decline. The board of directors, which included 2 non-family members, took notice. Following the review presentation, Harold Bennett, the longest-serving board member and a close friend of my grandfather, requested a private meeting with my father. Though I wasn't privy to their conversation, the company grapevine suggested it had been intensely critical of recent leadership decisions. 2 weeks later, my father called an unexpected executive meeting. His expression was grave as we gathered around the conference table. "After careful consideration and consultation with the board," he began, "we've decided that some organizational changes are necessary to address our current challenges and position Reeves Enterprises for continued success." My heart beat faster, as he continued. Effective immediately, we will be creating a new position of Chief Operating Officer, overseeing both operations and sales divisions. This role will report directly to me and will be responsible for ensuring alignment between our production capabilities and market demands. He paused, his gaze moving deliberately around the table before settling on me. Alexandra, your performance in sales and your contributions to the Operational Improvement Task Force have demonstrated your capacity for broader leadership. The board and I would like to offer you this position. I maintained my professional composure, though internally I was processing a whirlwind of emotions, vindication, satisfaction, and a complex mixture of triumph and sadness regarding what this meant for Ethan. Thank you for the opportunity, I replied. I would be honored to accept. My father nodded, then continued. Ethan will transition to a new role as Director of Strategic Initiatives, focusing on long-term growth projects and corporate partnerships. A diplomatic demotion, a made-up position not unlike what had been offered to me initially, but presented as a strategic move rather than a step down. Ethan's face remained impassive, though the whiteness of his knuckles as he gripped his pen betrayed his true feelings. The meeting continued with discussion of the transition plan, but the significance of what had occurred hung in the air. The succession plan had been tacitly revised. As COO reporting directly to the CEO, I was now positioned as the heir apparent to leadership of Reeves Enterprises. When the meeting concluded, Laura approached me with a knowing smile. Congratulations, Alexandra. A well-deserved promotion. Thank you, I replied. There's a lot of work ahead. Indeed. But something tells me you've been preparing for this for quite some time. As I moved into my new office, larger, with windows overlooking the manufacturing floor, I reflected on the journey that had brought me here. It hadn't been the direct path I'd initially expected. The detour through sales had actually broadened my perspective and skill set in ways that made me a more effective leader than I might have been otherwise. My father stopped by as I was arranging my desk. Settling in? Getting there, I replied. I'm reviewing the integrated production and sales forecasts for next quarter. He nodded, then closed the door behind him, an unusual action that signaled a personal rather than professional conversation. I owe you an apology, Alexandra, he said, taking a seat across from me. I made a mistake last year. I waited, allowing him the space to continue. I thought I was doing what was best for both my children and for the company. I saw your strength, your independence, and I believed you would succeed regardless of the path. Ethan seemed to need the structure, the legacy, more than you did. He sighed heavily. I was wrong. Leadership isn't about who needs the opportunity. More, it's about who can best serve the needs of the organization. It was the closest my father had ever come to admitting a mistake, let alone apologizing for one. I measured my response carefully. I appreciate you saying that. I've never wanted success at Ethan's expense, but I have wanted the chance to earn my place based on merit. You've more than earned it. He stood, straightening his tie in a characteristic gesture. The board is very impressed with your performance. Harold Bennett mentioned that you remind him of my father. Determined, analytical, always 3 steps ahead. I'll take that as a high compliment. As you should. He moved toward the door, then paused. Your grandfather would be proud of you, Alexandra. As am I. As he left, I turned to look out the window at the factory floor below, where workers moved purposefully among machinery that had provided livelihoods for generations of employees. My path to leadership had been neither direct nor easy, but perhaps it had been necessary, forging me through challenge into the leader Reeves Enterprises needed for its next chapter. The real test, I knew, would be the coming months as I implemented my vision for integrating our operations and sales strategies. Success would require not just business acumen but emotional intelligence, including finding a way to rebuild my relationship with Ethan and help him find his authentic place within the company. But those were challenges for tomorrow. Today, I allowed myself a moment to acknowledge how far I'd come, not just professionally, but personally. I had stood my ground, proven my worth, and navigated a painful family dynamic without sacrificing either my principles or my goals. The nameplate on my new office door read, Alexandra Reeves, Chief Operating Officer. It wasn't yet the CEO title, but for the first time since joining Reeves Enterprises, I could see a clear path to that ultimate position, a path I had carved through determination, strategic thinking, and unwavering belief in my own capabilities. My first 6 months as Chief Operating Officer of Reeves Enterprises were a masterclass in organizational transformation. Taking the reins of both sales and operations divisions required not just technical expertise, but diplomatic finesse. I was tasked with integrating 2 departments that had historically operated in silos, all while navigating the complex politics of a family business where my promotion had effectively leapfrogged me over my brother. The manufacturing floor became my second home. I arrived at 5:30 each morning, walking the production lines before most managers had even started their commute. These early hours provided unfiltered insights into operational realities, insights that rarely made it into sanitized reports. I spoke directly with machine operators, maintenance technicians, and floor supervisors, learning about bottlenecks and inefficiencies that had persisted for years beneath the notice of executive leadership. "No one's asked us about this before," remarked Teresa Valdez, a line supervisor with 22 years at the company, as she showed me how a poorly designed workflow caused unnecessary delays. "We've just worked around it." "We're not working around problems anymore," I told her. "We're solving them. I want every issue like this documented and forwarded to my team." Within weeks, we had compiled a comprehensive list of operational inefficiencies, ranked by their impact on productivity and the investment required to address them. I presented this analysis to my father and the board, proposing a strategic improvement plan with projected ROI for each initiative. "This is exactly the kind of systematic approach we need," Harold Bennett commented, nodding approvingly. "Identifying problems is easy. Prioritizing solutions based on data, that's leadership." My father studied the proposal carefully. "The capital expenditure is significant. So is the projected return," I countered. "A 34% improvement in production efficiency within 18 months, with full investment recovery in under 2 years. The board approved the plan unanimously, giving me the mandate and resources to implement real change. It was a decisive victory, but I knew that approval was merely the beginning. Execution would be the true test. Meanwhile, the sales division continued to thrive under the foundation I had established. The regional offices had embraced the modernized CRM system, and customer feedback was systematically funneling into product development. With my new authority as COO, I established weekly integration meetings between sales and operations leadership to ensure alignment between customer needs and production capabilities. The most complex aspect of my new role, however, wasn't the business challenges, but the human dynamics. Ethan's new position as Director of Strategic Initiatives was essentially a face-saving measure, a title without clear responsibilities or authority. He attended executive meetings but rarely contributed, his earlier enthusiasm replaced by thinly veiled resentment. "You've certainly made yourself indispensable," he commented after a particularly successful presentation where I'd outlined our first quarter achievements under the new integration model. His tone made the words less congratulatory than accusatory. "I'm just doing my job, Ethan," I replied quietly. "And I could use your help." He raised an eyebrow skeptically. "Really? The great Alexandra Reeves needs help? That would be a first." I took a deep breath, recognizing that professional arguments wouldn't address what was fundamentally a personal wound. "Yes, I do. You understand this company's culture and history in ways I sometimes don't." And you have relationships with legacy clients that go beyond business transactions? It was true, though perhaps not in the way he interpreted it. Ethan had always been more naturally sociable than me, building easy rapport where I tended toward functional efficiency. In the right role, that skill could be valuable, if he could move past his bitterness to contribute it. I'm developing a strategic account program for our top 20 clients, I continued. I'd like you to head it up. These are relationships that need personal attention, not just systems and processes. He studied me suspiciously. Is this another made-up position to keep me occupied? No, I said firmly. It's a critical initiative, with real impact on our bottom line. But it needs someone who understands the human side of business, not just the analytical side. That's never been my strength. It is yours. Something shifted in his expression. Not acceptance exactly, but perhaps a willingness to consider. I'll think about it, he said finally, which was more than I'd hoped for. That conversation marked the beginning of a slow, tentative rebuilding of our professional relationship. Ethan did eventually take on the strategic accounts program, approaching it with surprising dedication. The role suited him, drawing on his interpersonal skills while providing clear metrics for success. For the first time since joining the company, he was working in a position aligned with his actual strengths, rather than forced into a leadership template that had been designed with me in mind. Our personal relationship remained strained, however. Family dinners continued to be exercises in artificial conversation, with business topics strictly avoided. Our parents maintained a careful neutrality, though I occasionally caught my father watching our interactions with a troubled expression that suggested he recognized the damage his decisions had caused. 9 months into my tenure as COO, we faced our first major crisis. A fire at our primary component supplier's facility created a potential production stoppage that threatened contracts with our largest customers. The executive team gathered for an emergency meeting at 6 a.m., the day after the fire. We have inventory for approximately 2 weeks of production at current rates, our supply chain director reported grimly. After that, we're looking at a complete shutdown until Meridian can rebuild or we find alternative suppliers. What about our secondary suppliers? My father asked. They can cover maybe 30% of our needs. The specialized components for the TR7 line, those are exclusively from Meridian. All eyes turned to me. As COO, this crisis fell squarely within my responsibility. The solution would require coordination between operations, sales, and supplier relations, exactly the integration my role was designed to manage. We need a 3-pronged approach, I said, having already begun formulating a plan during the initial briefing. First, immediate conservation of existing inventory by prioritizing production of our highest margin products. Second, emergency sourcing from alternative suppliers, even at premium prices if necessary. And third, transparent communication with our customers about potential delays. I turned to Ethan. The customer communication is critical. Your strategic accounts team needs to personally contact each major client today, before rumors start circulating. We need to control the narrative and present our mitigation plan alongside the problem. For once, Ethan didn't bristle at direction from me. The crisis had shifted our dynamic from sibling rivalry to professional collaboration. I'll start making calls as soon as we have the official talking points, he agreed. Over the next 72 hours, I barely left the office, coordinating our response across departments. We identified 3 alternative suppliers who could collectively provide about 60% of our critical components. I authorized expedited shipping and premium pricing to secure these resources immediately. Meanwhile, our engineering team worked on potential design modifications that would allow substitution of more readily available components for the custom Meridian parts. Ethan's team executed the client communication strategy flawlessly. Rather than losing orders due to the potential delays, we actually received expressions of appreciation for our proactive approach. Several clients even offered flexibility on Delivery dates in exchange for priority status once production returned to normal. By the time the crisis had passed, with only a 3-day partial production slowdown rather than the 2-week complete stoppage initially feared, something fundamental had changed in the company's perception of my leadership. I had faced a potentially disastrous situation and navigated through it without panic or hesitation. That was impressive, my father said simply when we finally had a moment alone after the all-clear meeting. Coming from him, this understated praise carried more weight than effusive compliments from others. It was a team effort, I replied, giving credit where it was due. Ethan's client management was particularly effective. He nodded thoughtfully. You work well together when the circumstances demand it. That's something to build on. The crisis response became a turning point for Reeves Enterprises. The operational integration I had championed proved its value under pressure, demonstrating resilience that many of our competitors lacked. In the industry-wide supply chain disruption that followed the Meridian fire, we emerged relatively unscathed while several rivals suffered significant losses. This success accelerated the implementation of my broader integration strategy. Departments that had previously resisted collaboration now embraced it, having seen the tangible benefits during the crisis. The data-driven decision-making process I had established became standard practice throughout the organization. My days developed a rhythm: early mornings on the production floor, mid-mornings with the sales team, afternoons for strategic planning and problem-solving. I instituted monthly town halls where employees from all levels could ask questions directly to executive leadership, breaking down the hierarchical communication structure that had existed for generations. Your grandfather would have hated these meetings, Laura commented after one particularly lively town hall where a junior engineer had directly challenged a long-standing production protocol. He believed leadership should be respected, not questioned. Respect should be earned. Through dialogue, not distance, I replied. The best ideas can come from anywhere in the organization. As my 1-year anniversary as COO approached, the results of these changes became undeniable. Productivity had increased by 22%, sales were up 17%, and employee satisfaction scores had reached their highest levels in the company's history. The board was unanimously supportive of my leadership, with Harold Bennett becoming my most vocal advocate. Alexandra has transformed this company, he declared during a quarterly board meeting. We're seeing integration and innovation that I wouldn't have thought possible a year ago. My father, still CEO but increasingly delegating day-to-day decisions to me, nodded in agreement. The numbers speak for themselves. Even Ethan had found his place within the new organizational structure. His strategic accounts program had evolved into a full client experience division that was generating significant repeat business and referrals. We had reached a professional détente, working effectively together on business matters, though our personal relationship remained formal and somewhat distant. It was Harold who first raised the question of succession planning during a private lunch with my father and me. James, you've been talking about stepping back for years, he said bluntly. With Alexandra's performance as COO, perhaps it's time to formalize the transition timeline. My father glanced at me, his expression unreadable. You think she's ready? I think she's been ready, Harold replied. The question is whether you're ready to let go. The candor between these old friends was revealing. My father had always presented himself as eager to pass the torch once the right successor was prepared. Harold's comment suggested a different reality, that perhaps my father's hesitation had been less about my readiness and more about his own reluctance to relinquish control. We should discuss this with the full board, my father said finally, and with Catherine and Ethan. This is a family business after all. The family discussion happened the following Sunday over dinner at my parents' home. It was the first time in over a year that business had been explicitly on the agenda for a family gathering. Harold Bennett has suggested that we formalize a CEO succession plan, my father announced after the main course had been cleared. Given Alexandra's performance as COO, he believes, and I agree, that she is the natural successor. My mother nodded, unsurprised. She had always been more perceptive about business dynamics than she let on in public. "What's the proposed timeline?" she asked practically. "That's part of what we need to discuss," my father replied. "The board is suggesting a 6-month transition period, after which I would move to chairman and Alexandra would become CEO. The focus shifted to Ethan, whose reaction would determine whether this could be a harmonious transition or another source of family tension. He was silent for a long moment, swirling the wine in his glass. "Makes sense," he said finally, his tone neutral. "She's earned it." It was the first time he had openly acknowledged my achievements without qualification or resentment. The simple statement carried the weight of acceptance, if not enthusiastic support. "And your role?" my mother asked him gently. "Have you thought about what you want long-term?" Ethan set down his glass. "I've actually been considering something for a while. The strategic accounts program has shown me that my strengths lie in client relationships and business development, not operations or executive leadership." He turned to me. "With your permission, I'd like to propose establishing a separate business development subsidiary focused on expanding into new markets while maintaining our core manufacturing business." It was a surprising but intriguing suggestion. One, that would give Ethan autonomous leadership of a new venture while keeping him connected to the family enterprise. It would also address a growth challenge I had identified but hadn't yet prioritized due to our focus on operational integration. "I think that has real potential," I replied sincerely. "We've been so focused on optimizing our current business that we haven't dedicated enough resources to expansion opportunities. It would need to be a separate P&L," Ethan continued, clearly having thought this through. "With its own budget and performance metrics, but leveraging the Reeves manufacturing capabilities and brand reputation." My father looked between us, a complex mixture of emotions playing across his features: pride, relief, perhaps a touch of melancholy at seeing his children planning a future in which his role would be diminished. "We'll need to work out the details," he said, "but conceptually, I support this direction, for both of you." The family dinner concluded with a sense of resolution that had been absent for years. We had found a path forward that recognized our different strengths and provided meaningful roles for both of us within the expanded vision of Reeves Enterprises. The formal succession announcement came 3 weeks later, after board approval of both my promotion to CEO and Ethan's new business development initiative. The company-wide email was followed by a town hall meeting where my father officially introduced the transition plan to all employees. For 3 generations, Reeves Enterprises has evolved to meet changing market demands while maintaining our commitment to quality, innovation, and community, he told the assembled staff. Today, we announce the next phase of that evolution. As he outlined the succession plan and Ethan's new venture, I watched the reactions of the employees who had been with the company through multiple generations of leadership. There were nods of approval, a few whispered conversations, but predominantly an atmosphere of acceptance. The changes I had implemented over the past year had prepared the ground for this transition, demonstrating that evolving leadership did not threaten the company's core values, but rather reinforce them through renewed vitality. Effective June 1st, my father concluded, Alexandra Reeves will assume the role of Chief Executive Officer, becoming the 4th-generation leader of Reeves Enterprises. The applause that followed was genuine and sustained. I had earned this moment not through birthright, but through demonstrated capability. Through results that benefited everyone in the room, from the newest production assistant to the longest-serving manager. As the town hall concluded and employees began returning to their departments, Teresa Valdez, the line supervisor who had shown me workflow problems during my early morning tours, approached me. "Congratulations, Ms. Reeves," she said, extending her hand. Or should I start practicing Ms. CEO now? I smiled, shaking her hand firmly. Alexandra is still fine, Teresa. The title changes, but the person doesn't. She nodded approvingly. That's good to hear. Some people forget who they are when they sit in the big office. If I ever start forgetting, I expect you to remind me, I told her. Those early morning conversations kept me grounded in what matters in this company, the people who make everything work. Oh, I will, she assured me with a knowing smile. We all will. As Teresa walked away, I felt my father's hand on my shoulder. You've won them over, he said quietly. That's more important than any board approval. I learned that from you, I acknowledged. You always said that financial statements show results, but employee loyalty shows leadership. He smiled, a rare moment of unguarded emotion. I said it. You embodied it. He glanced around the emptying auditorium. I should have seen it sooner. It was the closest he would come to explicitly acknowledging his earlier mistake in favoring Ethan. But it was enough. We had moved beyond recrimination to reconciliation, not through dramatic confrontations, but through the steady accumulation of results that made the correct path forward undeniable. The transition period passed in a whirlwind of planning meetings, legal document preparations, and strategic alignment sessions. I worked closely with my father to ensure continuity while also preparing my own initiatives to launch once I officially took the helm. Ethan was equally busy establishing the framework for his business development subsidiary, which would officially launch concurrent with my CEO appointment. Throughout this period, I maintained my early morning factory floor routine, my monthly town halls, and my open-door policy for employees at all levels. These practices had built the foundation of my leadership credibility, and I was determined that the CEO title would not create distance between me and the operational realities of our business. Finally, June 1st arrived. I dressed with particular care that morning, selecting a charcoal gray suit that projected authority without ostentation. As I fastened my grandmother's pearl earrings, a gift from my mother for this occasion, I thought about the journey that had brought me to this day. The path had not been direct or easy. There had been detours, obstacles, and painful confrontations. I had been underestimated, sidelined, and forced to prove myself repeatedly in ways that others might not have been. But each challenge had strengthened my capabilities and clarified my vision for what Reeves Enterprises could become. When I arrived at the office, there was a small crowd gathered in the executive wing. As I approached, they parted to reveal my father standing beside my new office door, the CEO's office that had been his domain for nearly 3 decades. We thought a small ceremony was appropriate, he explained, gesturing to the assembled executive team, board members, and family. My mother stepped forward, squeezing my hand encouragingly. Even Ethan was present, standing slightly apart, but nonetheless there to witness this moment. My father turned to the door, where a maintenance worker waited with a new nameplate. With ceremonial deliberation, the worker removed the plaque reading James Reeves, Chief Executive Officer, and replaced it with one bearing my name and title. Alexandra Reeves, Chief Executive Officer, my father read aloud. A new chapter begins. The small crowd applauded as he handed me a key to the office. I accepted it with appropriate solemnity, aware of the symbolism beyond the practical function. This key represented not just access to a physical space, but entrustment with a legacy, with the livelihoods of hundreds of employees, and the future of a company that had been built through generations. Thank you, I said simply, addressing not just my father but everyone present. The trust you've placed in me is a responsibility I take seriously. Reeves Enterprises will continue to honor its heritage while embracing the possibilities of the future. As the crowd dispersed and I prepared to enter my new office for the first time, Harold Bennett paused beside me. Your grandfather would be proud, he said quietly. Not just of what you've achieved, but of how you achieved it, with integrity, intelligence, and determination. I smiled, thinking of the framed photograph that would be among the first items I placed on my new desk. A black and white image of my grandfather standing before the original workshop where Reeves Enterprises began. "I wish I had known him better," I replied. "You're more like him than you know," Harold assured me. "He built this company by seeing potential where others saw only problems. Sound familiar?" With those words resonating in my mind, I turned the key and opened the door to my new office. The morning sunlight streamed through the windows, illuminating a space that represented not the culmination of my journey, but rather the beginning of its most significant chapter. The nameplate on the door behind me, Alexandra Reeves, Chief Executive Officer, was more than a title. It was validation of a principle I had held to through every challenge, that genuine leadership is earned through capability, vision, and perseverance, not bestowed through privilege or preference. That principle would guide me in the years ahead as I led Reeves Enterprises into its fourth generation, not as someone's daughter or sister, but as a leader whose right to that position had been proven beyond any doubt. My first morning as CEO began precisely at 5:15 a.m., earlier than even my usual pre-dawn arrival. I wanted time alone in the building, to think, to absorb the responsibility I had assumed, and to set my intentions before the day's demands began. The manufacturing facility was quiet save for the night shift workers completing their final tasks, most offering surprised nods of recognition as I made my way through the production floor. I paused at the central control station, gazing out over the equipment that formed the heart of Reeves Enterprises. Manufacturing had been our foundation for 3 generations, but I knew that continued success would require evolution. The markets were changing, automation was transforming production processes, and global competition was intensifying. Maintaining the status quo, even an improved status quo, would eventually lead to decline. When I finally entered my new office, my father's office for 27 years and my grandfather's before that, I didn't immediately sit behind the imposing mahogany desk. Instead, I walked to the windows overlooking both the manufacturing floor and the administrative wing, symbolically positioned between the company's operational core and its strategic center. On the credenza beneath these windows, I arranged 3 photographs. My grandfather standing before the original workshop in 1947, my father breaking ground on our current facility in 1988, and a recent image of our full team at the company picnic, over 300 individuals whose livelihoods depended on the decisions I would make from this office. These images would serve as daily reminders of both our heritage and our responsibility to the future. Only then did I take my seat in the executive chair, opening my laptop to review the agenda for my first official day as CEO. The calendar was deliberately cleared of routine matters. Today would be dedicated to setting the tone for my leadership and introducing my vision for Reeves Enterprises' next chapter. At 8:30 a.m., the executive team gathered in the boardroom for our first meeting under my leadership. Some faces reflected curiosity, others anticipation, a few perhaps trepidation about what changes might come. My father was notably absent, a deliberate choice we had discussed to emphasize the transition of authority. "Thank you all for being here," I began, standing rather than taking my seat at the head of the table. "Today marks not just a change in leadership, but the beginning of a new era for Reeves Enterprises." I moved to the large screen at the front of the room, activating a presentation I had prepared over the previous weeks. For 75 years, this company has built its reputation on quality manufacturing and reliable service. Those foundations remain unshakable, I assured them. But the world around us is transforming at an unprecedented rate. To continue thriving for the next 75 years, we must evolve beyond being merely a manufacturer to becoming a complete solutions provider. The screen displayed a strategic framework I called Reeves 2030, a comprehensive 7-year plan to transform our business model. This isn't about abandoning what we do well, I continued, addressing the concern I could see forming on several faces. It's about expanding our definition of value creation. Our customers don't just need our products, they need integrated solutions that solve their evolving challenges. Over the next hour, I outlined my vision, expanding our engineering services to provide customized design solutions, developing proprietary software to optimize the performance of our manufactured components, creating a consulting division to help clients maximize efficiency, and strategically acquiring complementary businesses to expand our capabilities. This transformation won't happen overnight, I acknowledged. We'll implement in carefully measured phases, ensuring each step is profitable before advancing to the next. Our core manufacturing excellence remains our competitive advantage, but it becomes the foundation rather than the ceiling of our potential. When I finished the presentation, I invited questions and feedback. The responses reflected the diverse perspectives around the table, enthusiasm from some, cautious support from others, and thoughtful challenges from a few. This represents significant diversification, noted our CFO, Martin Wells. The capital requirements and risk profile are substantially different from our traditional model. You're absolutely right, I agreed, which is why we'll start with the lowest capital, highest margin expansions first: engineering services and software development. These build directly on existing capabilities while requiring minimal fixed asset investment. Laura from finance leaned forward. I appreciate the phased approach, but this will still require different performance metrics and evaluation criteria than we've historically used. Another excellent point, I acknowledged. Part of this transition will involve evolving our measurement systems. I'd like you to lead that initiative, Laura, developing new KPIs that capture value creation beyond traditional manufacturing metrics. By addressing concerns directly and incorporating executive input into implementation plans, I gradually built consensus around the strategic direction. By the end of the meeting, even the most cautious executives had moved from skepticism to conditional support. This is ambitious, Martin concluded. But if anyone can lead this transformation successfully, it's you, Alexandra. You've proven your ability to drive change while respecting our foundations. The executive meeting was followed by a company-wide address where I presented a streamlined version of the vision. Standing before hundreds of employees in our main assembly area, I emphasized both continuity and evolution. Reeves Enterprises was built on the principle that quality never goes out of style, I told them. That principle remains our North Star. But quality in today's world means more than precision manufacturing. It means comprehensive solutions, innovative thinking, and partnership with our customers through their own evolving challenges. I was careful to address the natural concerns about job security and changing roles. This expansion creates new opportunities for everyone in this company. We'll invest in training programs to help interested team members develop new skills. No one who performs well in their current role will be left behind as we grow. The response was generally positive, with particularly enthusiastic reception from younger employees who had been pressing for more innovative approaches. The longer-tenured staff showed more reserve, but their questions focused on implementation details rather than resistance to the concept itself, a promising sign that they were engaging with the vision rather than rejecting it outright. Following the announcement, I spent the remainder of the day meeting with department heads to begin translating the broad, strategic vision into tactical implementation plans. By the time I left the office that evening, well after most employees had departed, I had set in motion the first phase of the transformation. The initial months of my CEO tenure were focused on building momentum for the new strategic direction, while maintaining operational excellence in our core business. I instituted a formal innovation program that invited ideas from employees at all levels, with the most promising concepts receiving dedicated resources for development. This program yielded unexpected benefits beyond the specific innovations. It created engagement and ownership of the transformation throughout the organization. Simultaneously, I began restructuring our client engagement model to position Reeves as a solutions partner rather than merely a supplier. Our sales team was retrained to conduct consultative needs assessments rather than simply pushing products. We established a solutions engineering department that worked directly with clients to develop customized approaches to their challenges. Ethan's business development subsidiary, now formally established as Reeves Expansion Ventures, became an integral part of this strategy. His team identified acquisition targets and partnership opportunities that could accelerate our capabilities. Expansion. His natural networking abilities proved valuable in opening doors with potential allies that might have been hesitant to engage with a traditional manufacturer. "I met with Horizon Tech yesterday," he reported during one of our bi-weekly coordination meetings. "They're interested in a potential joint venture for the industrial IoT platform we discussed." This was a significant opportunity. Horizon was a respected software developer whose technology could be integrated with our manufacturing components to create smart products with monitoring and optimization capabilities. "That's excellent progress," I acknowledged. "What's their primary motivation for partnering rather than developing independently?" "They have the software expertise but lack manufacturing knowledge and established industry relationships," Ethan explained. "Our client base gives them immediate market access, and our manufacturing insights help them design practical solutions rather than theoretical concepts." I nodded appreciatively. Ethan had identified a true win-win opportunity. Exactly the kind of strategic alliance that could accelerate our transformation without requiring massive capital investment. More importantly, he had found a role that leveraged his natural strengths while contributing substantively to the company's future. "Draft the preliminary agreement framework," I authorized. "Let's move quickly before they entertain other partnership options." Our professional relationship had evolved into a productive collaboration that benefited from our different perspectives. The personal dimension remained somewhat formal, but the active resentment had faded, replaced by mutual respect for our respective contributions. 6 months into my CEO tenure, we unveiled our first integrated solution, a manufacturing component, with embedded sensors and proprietary software that allowed real-time performance monitoring and predictive maintenance. The product commanded a 40% price premium over our standard components, while delivering substantial value to clients through reduced downtime and optimized performance. The market response exceeded our projections. Orders surpassed manufacturing capacity within weeks of the launch, creating a welcome challenge of scaling production to meet demand. More importantly, the success validated our strategic direction, converting skeptics both inside and outside the company. "This is the future of manufacturing," declared Manufacturing Technology Quarterly in a feature article about our innovation. "Reeves Enterprises is pioneering the integration of physical components and digital intelligence that will define industrial leadership in the coming decade." The article included my official portrait standing on the manufacturing floor rather than behind a desk, sleeves rolled up, engaged in conversation with production team members. The image perfectly captured the leadership approach I had cultivated, connected to operational realities while driving strategic evolution. The success of our first integrated solution created momentum for more ambitious initiatives. We established an R&D division focused on developing proprietary technologies that could be incorporated into our manufacturing processes and products. We acquired a small engineering services firm that specialized in efficiency optimization, immediately expanding our consultative capabilities. These changes required significant adjustments to our organizational structure and culture. I implemented cross-functional teams to break down historical silos between departments. We revised our compensation systems to reward collaborative innovation rather than merely departmental performance. Training programs were expanded to help long-tenured employees develop new skills relevant to our evolving business model. Not every initiative succeeded. An attempt to develop consumer products leveraging our industrial technology proved premature. We lack the marketing and distribution capabilities for that market segment. A partnership with a European firm dissolved after 6 months due to misaligned expectations and cultural differences. These setbacks provided valuable learning experiences that refined our approach to future opportunities. Failure that generates insights isn't failure. It's education with a cost attached, I told the executive team after the European partnership dissolved. The question isn't whether we'll have setbacks, but whether we learn from them efficiently enough to justify their cost. This perspective helped create a culture where calculated risks were encouraged, and honest assessment of outcomes, both positive and negative, was valued over reputation management. By acknowledging and analyzing our missteps transparently, we built organizational resilience and decision-making wisdom. 1 year into my CEO tenure, Reeves Enterprises had begun its transformation from a traditional manufacturer into an integrated solutions provider. Revenue had increased by 22%, profit margins by 31%, and our stock value, we had a limited public float while maintaining family control, had nearly doubled. Industry publications regularly featured our innovations, and competitors were scrambling to develop similar capabilities. The board's annual review of my performance was unanimously positive. Harold Bennett, still our most senior board member, summarized the sentiment. Alexandra has accomplished more in 12 months than most CEOs achieve in 5 years. She has honored our heritage while boldly advancing our future. My father, now serving as chairman with a reduced operational role, expressed his own assessment more simply. "You've exceeded every expectation," he told me during our monthly one-on-one meeting, including mine. Coming from him, this acknowledgement carried special significance. Our relationship had evolved from the hierarchical parent-child dynamic of my early career to something approaching peer respect, though with the inevitable complexity of our shared history always present beneath the surface. Despite these successes, I was increasingly aware of an emerging challenge that threatened our continued transformation. Our physical infrastructure, manufacturing facilities, equipment, and systems had been designed for traditional production, not for the integrated solutions we were developing. We were adapting existing resources as effectively as possible, but these adaptations would eventually limit our growth potential. After extensive analysis and consultation with operations leaders, I developed a proposal for the largest capital investment in company history, a new manufacturing and innovation campus that would incorporate state-of-the-art production technologies, collaborative workspace for our expanding engineering and software teams, and dedicated facilities for client co-creation sessions. The estimated investment was substantial, nearly $180 million, representing a significant portion of our available capital and requiring additional financing. The proposal would need board approval, with my father's support particularly crucial, given the scale of the commitment. I prepared meticulously for the presentation, developing comprehensive financial projections, risk mitigation strategies, and phased implementation plans. The morning of the board meeting, I arrived at the office before dawn, reviewing my materials one final time before the high-stakes discussion. To my surprise, I found my father already in the boardroom, reviewing printed copies of my proposal, with a focused expression. "You're here early," I observed, setting my materials on the table. He looked up, a slight smile softening his usually stoic features. "Some habits never change. I always reviewed major proposals before sunrise on decision days." I nodded, taking a seat across from him. "And what's your preliminary assessment of this one?" He closed the binder deliberately. "It's ambitious, potentially transformative, and risky." "All true," I acknowledged. "But the greater risk would be maintaining infrastructure that increasingly constrains our evolution." That's exactly what I concluded, he agreed, surprising me with his immediate alignment. You've made a compelling case for the investment. I'll be supporting the proposal today. His endorsement was significant, but I didn't want it based solely on paternal support. I appreciate that, but I need your honest critique as well. Where are the weaknesses in the plan? He considered this carefully. The timeline may be optimistic. Construction projects of this scale typically encounter delays that ripple through implementation schedules. I'd recommend building more contingency buffers into the transition plan. It was a valid point, reflecting his decades of experience with major capital projects. I'll adjust the implementation timeline accordingly, I assured him. Any other concerns? Just one, he said, leaning forward slightly. This project will demand extraordinary leadership attention during the critical phases. The risk isn't the concept or even the financing. It's potential distraction from other strategic initiatives during implementation. Again, his assessment was insightful. I've been considering that, I replied. I'm planning to appoint Teresa Valdez as dedicated project executive for the new campus. She has both the technical knowledge and the leadership skills to manage the implementation while I maintain focus on our broader transformation. My father nodded approvingly. Teresa is an excellent choice. She's been with us for what, 25 years now? 27, I corrected. And she's one of our most respected operational leaders. The promotion would also send an important message that we develop talent from within, even for the most critical initiatives. Our discussion continued until other board members began arriving for the meeting. The easy exchange of ideas, the mutual respect evident in our interaction, represented a relationship I couldn't have imagined possible 2 years earlier when I had stood in his office arguing for the recognition I deserved. The board presentation proceeded smoothly, with thoughtful questions and robust discussion of both opportunities and risks. My father's visible support influenced other board members who might have harbored reservations about the scale of the investment. After 90 minutes of deliberation, the proposal was approved unanimously. This marks a historic moment for Reeves Enterprises, Harold declared as the vote concluded. The vision Alexandra has presented today will position this company for leadership in an industry being transformed by technology and changing customer expectations. As board members gathered their materials and prepared to depart, Martin Wells, our CFO, paused beside me. When you first presented your strategic vision last year, I had doubts about whether we could truly evolve beyond our manufacturing identity, he admitted quietly. I no longer have those doubts. You've not only articulated a compelling future, but systematically built the capabilities to achieve it. His words reflected a broader transition that had occurred within the company, from skepticism about fundamental change to embracement of a new identity that honored our heritage while transcending its limitations. This shift had not happened through grand proclamations, but through consistent, incremental progress that demonstrated the tangible benefits of evolution. The new campus project officially launched the following month with a groundbreaking ceremony attended by employees, community leaders, and industry partners. Standing before the assembled crowd, shovel in hand, I felt the weight of both history and future possibility. For 76 years, Reeves Enterprises has adapted to changing markets while maintaining unwavering commitment to quality and innovation, I told the gathering. Today, we break ground not just on a new facility, but on the next chapter of that continuing story. My father and Ethan stood nearby, each representing different aspects of our company's identity, its heritage, and its emerging opportunities. The symbolism wasn't lost on longtime employees or industry observers. What had once been a fractured family leadership picture had evolved into a unified team with differentiated but complementary roles. As construction began on the new campus, our business transformation continued to accelerate. The joint venture with Horizon Tech, championed by Ethan, launched a platform that integrated our manufacturing components with advanced analytics software, creating unprecedented value for industrial clients. Our engineering services division expanded to include sustainability consulting, helping clients reduce environmental impact while improving operational efficiency. 18 months into my CEO tenure, Reeves Enterprises was featured on the cover of Industry Innovation magazine, under the headline, Manufacturing Reimagined: How Alexandra Reeves is Transforming a Traditional Family Business into a Solutions Powerhouse. The article traced our journey from conventional manufacturer to integrated provider, highlighting both the strategic vision and the implementation discipline that had enabled our transformation. It included interviews with employees at various levels, clients who had benefited from our evolving capabilities, and industry analysts who positioned us as a model for traditional businesses navigating technological disruption. The most remarkable aspect of Reeves's transformation, the article concluded, is how it has occurred without sacrificing the quality foundation on which the company built its reputation. Under Alexandra Reeves's leadership, evolution and heritage have proven complementary rather than contradictory, a lesson for family businesses everywhere. When the magazine arrived at the office, I found a copy on my desk with a handwritten note from my father. Your grandfather would be amazed and proud, as am I. The simple words represented complete closure of the painful chapter that had begun. With being passed over for leadership in favor of my brother, the journey from that disappointment to my current position had been arduous, requiring persistence through unjust setbacks and the courage to stand firm for my value. Yet that difficult path had ultimately made me a stronger, more effective leader than I might have been otherwise. Had I been given the leadership role initially, I might never have developed the strategic perspective gained through my time in sales. I might not have built the cross-departmental understanding that now enabled me to drive integration across traditional boundaries. The detour that had once seemed like rejection had actually equipped me with precisely the capabilities needed to lead our current transformation. 2 years after assuming the CEO role, with construction of our new campus nearing completion, I stood on the rooftop of the nearly finished Innovation Center, surveying what we had built, not just physically, but organizationally. Reeves Enterprises had evolved from a respected regional manufacturer into a nationally recognized solutions leader with expanding global reach. Our workforce had grown by 30%, our revenue had nearly doubled, and our market valuation had tripled. More importantly, we had created a company positioned to thrive through ongoing technological disruption rather than being marginalized by it. We had transformed our identity and capabilities while maintaining the quality foundation and values established through 3 previous generations. As I looked out over the new campus that would soon become our operational headquarters, I reflected on the journey that had brought me to this moment. The path had not been straightforward or easy. It had required perseverance through unfair treatment, courage to challenge established expectations, and the resilience to transform setbacks into opportunities. That challenging journey had taught me that leadership is earned not through title or position but through vision, capability, and determination. It had shown me that true success comes not from external validation but from creating genuine value, and perhaps most importantly, it had demonstrated that the most meaningful achievements often emerge from our greatest disappointments when we refuse to be defined by them. The new manufacturing facility gleamed in the afternoon sunlight, its modern architecture embodying the balance we had struck between heritage and innovation. Within those walls, hundreds of employees would soon be creating solutions that extended far beyond what previous generations of Reeves leadership had imagined possible. My name might be on the CEO's door, but the transformation we had achieved was the product of collective effort, of an organization willing to evolve while honoring its foundations. My role had been to articulate a compelling vision and create the conditions for that evolution to occur, but the journey had been shared by every member of our team. As I turned to descend from the rooftop, I caught sight of the original Reeves manufacturing building in the distance. the facility where my grandfather had established our reputation for quality, where my father had expanded our production capacity, and where I had begun my own journey from overlooked potential to recognized leadership. The contrast between that traditional structure and our new innovation campus visually represented the transformation we had achieved, not abandoning our past, but building upon it to create a future with expanded possibilities. The company name remained the same, but its capabilities, market position, and potential had been fundamentally reinvented. In that moment of reflection, I realized that the most significant transformation had not been in our business model or facilities, but in our understanding of what Reeves Enterprises could become. We had moved beyond the constraints of tradition without sacrificing the values that gave that tradition meaning. We had proven that respect for heritage and embrace of innovation could coexist productively. The difficult path I had traveled to leadership had prepared me uniquely for this transformation. The challenges that had once seemed unfair had actually equipped me with perspectives and capabilities I might never have developed through a more direct route to authority. What had appeared to be rejection had ultimately been preparation for a more expansive vision than might otherwise have been possible. As I rejoined the project team on the main floor, Teresa Valdez approached with the day's construction update. "We're still on schedule for the official opening next month," she reported proudly, "and under budget by nearly 2%. "Excellent work," I acknowledged. "You've managed this project extraordinarily well, Teresa." She smiled, gesturing around at the nearly completed space. "It's been the opportunity of a lifetime, from line supervisor to leading the largest project in company history. Not a journey I could have imagined when I started here." "The best journeys rarely follow predictable paths," I replied, thinking of my own circuitous route to leadership. "It's the unexpected turns that often lead to the most worthwhile destinations." Teresa nodded thoughtfully. "That's been true for Reeves Enterprises under your leadership. We've taken turns I don't think anyone anticipated, but we've arrived somewhere better than where we started." Her assessment captured precisely what we had achieved collectively, a transformation that honored our heritage while transcending its limitations, creating a company prepared not just to navigate the future, but to help shape it. My name might have appeared on the CEO's door 2 years earlier, but the true achievement had been converting that symbolic moment into substantive change, transforming individual recognition into organizational reinvention that benefited everyone connected to Reeves Enterprises. That journey from personal vindication to collective transformation represented the essence of authentic leadership. The official opening of our new innovation campus marked the beginning of what would prove to be the most challenging chapter of my leadership journey. Standing before the assembled crowd of employees, board members, clients, and community leaders, I felt a profound sense of accomplishment as I cut the ceremonial ribbon spanning the entrance to our state-of-the-art facility. Today we celebrate not just a new physical space, but a new era for Reeves Enterprises, I declared. These buildings represent our commitment to leading through innovation rather than merely responding to change. Every aspect of this campus has been designed to facilitate collaboration, creativity, and forward-thinking solutions for our clients' evolving challenges. The campus truly was impressive. 375,000 square feet of integrated manufacturing, engineering, and administrative space incorporating the latest sustainable building technologies. Natural light flooded the interior through strategically placed skylights and glass walls. The manufacturing floor featured flexible production cells rather than fixed assembly lines, allowing rapid reconfiguration for different product requirements. The Innovation Center included interactive client spaces where our teams could co-create solutions with customers. This campus will serve as our operational headquarters for decades to come, I continued. But its true significance lies not in the physical structure, but in what it enables us to become, a company constantly reinventing itself while maintaining the quality and reliability that have defined Reeves Enterprises for over 75 years. The event concluded with guided tours showcasing the facility's advanced features. The response was universally positive, with clients particularly impressed by the dedicated collaboration spaces and the transparent views into our manufacturing processes, physical manifestations of our evolution from closed system manufacturer to open innovation solutions partner. Little did I know that this moment of triumph would soon be followed by an unprecedented test of our transformation and my leadership. The first signs of trouble appeared just 6 weeks after the grand opening. Martin Wells, our CFO, requested an urgent meeting to discuss preliminary third-quarter financial projections. "We're seeing concerning trends in the numbers," he explained, sliding a report across my desk. "Raw material costs have increased by 17% in the past 60 days, significantly beyond our contingency planning. Simultaneously, 3 major clients have delayed implementation of integrated solution projects, citing economic uncertainty." I studied the figures carefully. The combination of rising costs and delayed revenue presented a genuine challenge to our quarterly performance expectations. After 2 years of exceeding projections, we were facing the possibility of our first significant miss since I'd assumed leadership. "What's driving the materials cost increase?" I asked. "Multiple factors converging simultaneously," Martins replied. "Trade tensions affecting import costs, supply constraints in key materials markets, and weather events disrupting transportation networks. Our procurement team believes these are temporary disruptions, but they're unlikely to resolve within the current quarter." I nodded, considering implications. "And the project delays. Are clients canceling or merely postponing?" "Postponing, according to the account teams. All 3 companies report strong interest in proceeding, but have implemented temporary capital expenditure freezes due to economic forecasts." This was potentially more concerning than the cost increases. If broader economic headwinds were affecting client investment decisions, we could face more widespread project delays. Our transformation strategy depended on continued adoption of our integrated solutions to offset the higher operational costs associated with our new capabilities and facilities. "Let's convene the executive leadership team this afternoon," I decided. "We need to develop a coordinated response to both challenges." The meeting revealed the full complexity of our situation. Beyond the immediate cost pressures and revenue delays, our intelligence suggested competitors were preparing aggressive pricing strategies to capitalize on market uncertainty, potentially further squeezing our margins and delaying client commitments. "We're facing a perfect storm," Laura observed. "Cost increases on one side, revenue compression on the other, and competitive pressures amplifying both challenges." I listened carefully as each executive outlined impacts from their perspective. The situation was concerning, but not dire. We had built sufficient reserves to weather temporary turbulence. The real question was how to respond strategically, rather than reactively. "We have several options," I said, after all perspectives had been shared. "We could implement immediate cost-cutting measures to protect quarterly results. We could maintain course, absorb the short-term impact, and emphasize our long-term strategy to investors. Or we could accelerate certain aspects of our transformation to demonstrate even stronger differentiation from competitors who might be retreating to purely price-based competition." The ensuing discussion revealed divided perspectives among the leadership team. Some advocated for conservative measures to protect immediate financial performance. Others argued for maintaining our transformational momentum despite temporary setbacks. After nearly 2 hours of debate, I made my decision. "We will not retreat from our strategic direction," I stated firmly. "Short-term cost-cutting might protect quarterly numbers but would compromise the value we're creating through our transformation. Instead, we'll implement targeted efficiency measures that don't impact our core innovation initiatives and will intensify our client education efforts regarding the ROI of our integrated solutions, even in uncertain economic environments. The approach represented a calculated risk. By maintaining our transformational investments despite financial headwinds, we were betting that our differentiated value proposition would ultimately prevail over competitive price pressures. It was a test of our conviction in the strategic direction we had established. I presented the approach to the board the following week, acknowledging the likely impact on quarterly results while emphasizing the long-term strategic rationale. My father and Harold Bennett supported the decision immediately. Other board members required more convincing but ultimately approved the plan with the understanding that we would reassess if conditions deteriorated further. The weeks that followed tested our organizational resolve. As predicted, our third quarter results fell short of projections for the first time under my leadership. The business press, which had been almost uniformly positive about our transformation, published articles questioning whether we had overextended with our ambitious evolution and capital investments. Reeves Enterprises, Innovation Ambitions, Meet Market Reality, read one particularly pointed headline. The article suggested that our transformation strategy might prove too costly to sustain through economic uncertainty, quoting anonymous industry insiders who characterized our new campus as extravagant and our integrated solutions approach as ahead of market readiness. These external criticisms created internal anxiety. Employees who had enthusiastically embraced our transformation began expressing concerns about job security and company stability. Middle managers reported increasing difficulty maintaining team focus amid rumors and speculation. Rather than hiding from these challenges, I addressed them directly. I instituted weekly town hall meetings where I shared transparent updates on our situation, acknowledged legitimate concerns, and reinforced our strategic rationale. I made myself visible throughout the organization, spending time on the manufacturing floor, in engineering labs, and with sales teams to demonstrate engaged leadership through difficulty. Transformations are never linear, I reminded the assembled staff during one particularly crucial town hall after our quarterly results announcement. We're navigating temporary turbulence, but our destination remains clear. The worst decision we could make now would be abandoning our strategic direction, just as market conditions are validating its importance. I pointed to emerging data showing that while overall industry spending was indeed contracting, investment in integrated solutions was actually increasing as a percentage of total expenditures. Clients were becoming more selective about investments, but prioritizing those that delivered comprehensive value rather than merely incremental improvements. This is precisely the market evolution we positioned ourselves to address, I explained. Conventional manufacturers competing primarily on product specifications and price will face increasing pressure in this environment. Our transformation into a solutions provider creates sustainable differentiation that becomes more valuable, not less, during economic uncertainty. My transparency and consistent messaging gradually rebuilt confidence within the organization. The fact that we implemented efficiency measures without resorting to layoffs or major project cancellations demonstrated both our commitment to our strategy and our financial resilience despite temporary challenges. Externally, I took a similarly proactive approach. Rather than avoiding media inquiry about our underperformance, I engaged directly with key industry publications to articulate our perspective on market conditions and our strategic response. I emphasized that our transformation wasn't a reaction to current conditions, but preparation for long-term industry evolution, positioning that resonated with sophisticated observers who recognized the structural changes occurring in manufacturing. The most crucial element of our response, however, occurred at the client level. I personally joined key account teams for strategic review sessions with our largest clients, demonstrating executive commitment to their success and gathering unfiltered feedback about their evolving needs during uncertain conditions. These conversations revealed a critical insight. While clients were indeed delaying some capital investments, they were simultaneously seeking greater operational efficiency from existing assets, precisely the value proposition of several of our integrated solutions. This realization led to a tactical pivot in our market approach, emphasizing the immediate cost-saving aspects of our offerings rather than their longer-term transformational benefits. "We're not changing what we offer," I explained to our sales organization during a special strategy session. "We're changing how we position those offerings to address clients' most pressing current concerns. The same solutions that drive innovation during expansion can deliver efficiency during contraction." This repositioning proved remarkably effective. Within weeks, several major clients who had deferred projects re-engaged with modified scopes focused on operational optimization. Our ability to rapidly adapt our value narrative to changing client priorities demonstrated exactly the kind of agility and client centricity that our transformation had been designed to create. By the midpoint of the fourth quarter, our performance had stabilized, with new orders actually exceeding the same period in the previous year despite continued market turbulence. The operational efficiency measures we had implemented were delivering cost savings that partially offset the increased materials expenses. Our competitive position was strengthening as less adaptable manufacturers struggled to respond to changing market dynamics. This recovery didn't happen automatically. It resulted from thousands of individual efforts across the organization, from engineering teams who reconfigured solutions to address efficiency needs, to procurement specialists who found creative alternatives to constrained materials, to account managers who maintained client relationships through uncertainty. My leadership role wasn't to personally solve each challenge, but to create the conditions for our collective capabilities to respond effectively. The most profound test of our organizational transformation came unexpectedly from outside our industry. Entirely. A global financial institution released an investment analysis that fundamentally questioned the future of traditional manufacturing in developed economies, citing automation, outsourcing, and declining durable goods consumption as existential threats to companies like Reeves Enterprises. The report, which received widespread attention in business circles, categorized manufacturing firms into legacy declining, stable traditional, and future-oriented evolving segments. Despite our transformation efforts, we were classified in the stable traditional category rather than the future-oriented group we believed we had become. This external perception challenge struck at the core of our transformational narrative. If sophisticated market analysts still viewed us primarily as a traditional manufacturer, despite our substantial evolution, how effective had our repositioning actually been? The report triggered renewed questions from investors, clients, and even our own board. During a particularly pointed exchange at our December board meeting, one of our newer directors challenged our strategic direction directly. "If financial analysts still see us as a traditional manufacturer after all this investment in transformation, have we failed to effectively communicate our evolution, or have we simply not transformed enough?" he asked. The question hung heavily in the boardroom. My father glanced at me with an expression that conveyed both concern and confidence. Concern about the legitimate challenge being raised, but confidence in my ability to address it. "Both observations contain elements of truth," I acknowledged after a thoughtful pause. "Our communication of our transformation has indeed been more effective within our direct client base than to the broader market. And our evolution, while substantial, represents a journey still in progress rather than a completed transition." I moved to the presentation screen and pulled up a strategic framework I had been developing in anticipation of this very discussion. "This financial analysis actually presents a valuable opportunity," I continued. "It provides external validation of the market direction we anticipated, the diminishing value of pure manufacturing, and the premium valuation assigned to integrated technology and solutions providers. The fact that we haven't yet been recognized in the highest value category doesn't invalidate our strategy. It simply confirms that we must accelerate its implementation and more effectively communicate our progress. Over the next hour, I presented a comprehensive analysis of our transformation metrics, not just financial results, which had been temporarily impacted by market conditions, but fundamental business model indicators showing our progress toward becoming a solutions provider. The percentage of revenue derived from integrated offerings had increased from 12% to 37% within 2 years. Our client retention rates had improved by 24%, reflecting deeper value relationships. Our talent profile had evolved significantly, with technology and consulting capabilities now representing nearly 30% of our workforce. These metrics demonstrate genuine transformation, I concluded. Our challenge isn't changing direction, but accelerating progress and ensuring the market recognizes our evolution. I propose we implement Phase 3 of our strategic plan immediately, rather than waiting for the originally scheduled timeline next year. Phase 3 had been designed as the most ambitious aspect of our transformation, establishing Reeves as a platform provider whose technology would be licensed by other manufacturers to create their own integrated offerings. This approach would extend our impact beyond our direct manufacturing capacity and create high-margin recurring revenue streams less susceptible to economic fluctuations. It was a bold proposal to accelerate our most ambitious initiatives precisely when external conditions suggested caution. The board discussion was appropriately rigorous, examining risks, resource requirements, and market readiness for the platform concept. Harold Bennett, who had remained characteristically quiet during most of the exchange, finally spoke. "I'm reminded of a decision your grandfather made in 1954, he said, addressing me, but speaking to the entire board. During an economic downturn when competitors were retrenching, he invested in advanced machinery that most considered premature for the market. That decision positioned Reeves to capture enormous market share when conditions improved because we offered capabilities others couldn't quickly replicate." He looked around the table deliberately. "The measure of leadership isn't making bold moves during favorable conditions. It's having the courage to advance strategically when circumstances suggest retreat. Alexandra has demonstrated that courage consistently, and the results have validated her judgment even through temporary challenges." His intervention shifted the tenor of the discussion. After further deliberation, the board approved accelerating Phase 3 with quarterly review gates to manage risk during implementation. As the meeting concluded, my father pulled me aside. "That was impressive," he said quietly. "Not just the strategic thinking, but how you handled the challenge. You didn't become defensive or double down without thoughtful consideration. You acknowledged legitimate concerns while maintaining conviction in our direction." His observation highlighted an important aspect of leadership I had developed through the recent challenges: the capacity to simultaneously acknowledge difficulties while maintaining strategic clarity. This balance had proven essential for maintaining organizational confidence through uncertainty. The decision to accelerate our platform strategy proved timely. Market research conducted in early preparation for the initiative revealed that several technology companies were developing similar concepts for our industry, potentially positioning themselves between manufacturers and end users in the value chain. By advancing our timeline, we established our solution before these potential competitors could gain traction. The platform launch, scheduled for the industry's largest trade show in March, became our organization's primary focus. Cross-functional teams worked intensively to develop the underlying architecture, client interfaces, implementation methodology, and go-to-market strategy. The energy throughout the company was palpable, a shared commitment to proving external perceptions wrong by definitively establishing Reeves as an industry innovator rather than merely a high-quality traditional manufacturer. I remained directly involved throughout the development process, not micromanaging technical details, but ensuring alignment between the platform's capabilities and our strategic positioning. My weekly reviews with the core team focused on strengthening the narrative connecting our manufacturing heritage to our technology future, establishing continuity rather than contradiction between our past and emerging identity. Our manufacturing expertise is our unique advantage in developing this platform, I emphasized during these sessions. Pure technology companies understand software, but lack deep knowledge of production realities. Our platform will succeed precisely because it bridges the physical and digital aspects of industrial operations in ways others can't replicate. This perspective became central to our market positioning. Rather than presenting our platform as a departure from our manufacturing identity, we framed it as an evolution informed by our production heritage. Technology developed by manufacturers for manufacturers, embedding practical operational knowledge that theoretical solutions couldn't match. The trade show launch exceeded even our optimistic projections. Our booth, strategically positioned at the main entrance to the exhibition hall, featured a dramatic multimedia presentation showcasing the platform's capabilities. Continuous demonstrations drew crowds throughout the event, with particularly strong interest from mid-sized manufacturers who recognized the platform as a way to access capabilities they couldn't develop independently. Most gratifying was the response from industry analysts who had previously categorized us as traditional manufacturers. Several published real-time updates from the show floor specifically highlighting our platform as evidence of manufacturing's evolution toward technology-enabled business models. One prominent analyst whose firm had contributed to the earlier financial report explicitly revised their categorization, moving Reeves Enterprises from stable traditional to future-oriented, evolving based on the platform demonstration. Reeves has executed perhaps the most successful manufacturing-to-solutions transformation we've observed, he wrote. Their new platform represents not merely a product extension, but a fundamental business model evolution that positions them for leadership in industrial technology integration. By the show's conclusion, we had secured 12 platform implementation commitments from manufacturers across 4 different industry verticals, validating both the technical solution and the market demand. The platform subscription model would create predictable, high-margin revenue streams that complemented our manufacturing operations while extending our market impact beyond our direct production capacity. The success validated our decision to accelerate rather than retreat during challenging market conditions. By maintaining strategic conviction through temporary turbulence, we had emerged with strengthened market position and clearer differentiation from traditional competitors. The experience reinforced a leadership principle I had intuited, but now understood with greater clarity. Genuine transformation requires unwavering commitment, precisely when external circumstances create pressure to revert to comfortable patterns. 3 years into my tenure as CEO, with the platform initiative successfully launched and market recognition of our transformation firmly established, I felt a sense of completion regarding the first major chapter of my leadership. We had definitively evolved from a traditional manufacturer into an integrated solutions provider, with the organizational capabilities, market position, and financial model to sustain this identity through changing conditions. This milestone prompted reflection on the journey from being passed over for leadership in favor of my brother to my current position guiding a successful organizational transformation. The path had been neither direct nor easy, requiring persistence through unjust setbacks and the courage to advocate for my capabilities when they weren't being recognized. The difficult nature of that journey had actually strengthened my leadership in ways a smoother path might not have. Having experienced the frustration of capable contributions being overlooked, I was particularly attentive to identifying and developing talent throughout the organization, regardless of traditional credentials or personal background. Several of our most innovative concepts had emerged from employees whose insights might previously have been dismissed due to their position or department. Teresa Valdez epitomized this principle. Having successfully led the campus construction project, she had been promoted to Vice President of Operational Innovation, responsible for integrating advanced manufacturing technologies with our traditional production capabilities. Her practical knowledge combined with strategic thinking had proven invaluable in ensuring our technological evolution remained grounded in manufacturing realities. "I never imagined having this kind of impact," she confided during a planning session for our next-generation production systems. "For 20 years, I was just focused on doing my specific job well. Having the opportunity to shape the company's future is something I didn't think was possible for someone with my background." "The best insights often come from people closest to the work," I replied. "One of our biggest mistakes in the past was assuming leadership perspective was limited to those with traditional credentials or specific backgrounds. We're stronger now because we recognize talent and potential in all their forms." This philosophy had become embedded in our organizational culture. We had implemented structured programs to identify emerging leaders throughout the company, regardless of their current role or department. Cross-functional project teams deliberately included members from diverse organizational levels to ensure multiple perspectives informed decisions. These practices had not only improved our innovation capabilities, but also created unprecedented engagement and loyalty among employees who felt genuinely valued for their contributions. The transformation of our organizational culture paralleled the evolution of my relationship with Ethan. Through the challenges of the past year, our professional collaboration had deepened substantially. His business development subsidiary had played a crucial role in securing platform implementation partners, leveraging his relationship skills to engage potential clients that might have been hesitant to adopt such an innovative approach. "The platform has completely changed our conversations with prospective partners," he reported during our monthly coordination meeting. "Instead of discussing incremental improvements to existing operations, we're now engaging in transformational dialogues about fundamental business model evolution. It's attracting a different level of client executive. Individuals thinking strategically about their company's future, rather than merely operationally about current challenges." His observation reflected his own evolution as a business leader. He had found authentic professional identity not by following a prescribed family succession plan, but by discovering the intersection between his natural abilities and genuine market needs. The result was not only his personal fulfillment, but also substantive contribution to our company's success. Our personal relationship had gradually warmed as well. The competitive tension that had characterized our interactions for years had largely dissipated, replaced by mutual respect for our different but complementary capabilities. We weren't close in the way some siblings might be, but we had established a functional relationship built on professional appreciation, rather than merely familial obligation. My relationship with my father had undergone an even more profound transformation. From the hierarchical parent-child dynamic of my early career to the strained period following the succession decision, we had eventually established a relationship of mutual respect and collaborative leadership. He had become my most trusted advisor while fully acknowledging my authority as CEO, a delicate balance that reflected his emotional maturity and genuine commitment to the company's success above personal considerations. During a rare quiet moment together following a board meeting where we had presented record quarterly results, despite continued market challenges, he shared a perspective that reflected his own journey. "I made a serious mistake in Judgment 3 years ago," he said without preamble as we reviewed presentation materials after other board members had departed. "I allowed traditional thinking about succession and family dynamics to override objective assessment of leadership capability. I'm grateful you had the strength of character to persist, despite that misjudgment." It was the most direct acknowledgement he had ever offered regarding the succession decision that had temporarily derailed my leadership path. After 3 years of demonstrated success, he clearly felt it important to address what had long remained a subtle undercurrent in our relationship. "I've actually come to see that period as valuable, though I certainly didn't feel that way at the time," I replied after considering my response carefully. "The path through sales gave me perspective and capabilities I might not have developed otherwise." And having to advocate for my value rather than having it automatically recognized prepared me for challenges I've faced as CEO. He nodded thoughtfully. Perhaps, but that doesn't justify the initial decision. I should have recognized your readiness then, as clearly as everyone sees it now. We all have blind spots, I offered. What matters is willingness to revise our perspective when evidence suggests we should. My father smiled slightly. A diplomatic response worthy of a CEO. Then, more seriously, you've exceeded every expectation I had, Alexandra. You've transformed this company in ways I couldn't have envisioned while honoring the foundation your grandfather and I built. That's a remarkable achievement. Coming from him, this validation carried special significance, not because I still needed his approval professionally, but because it represented complete resolution of the tensions that had once threatened to permanently damage our relationship. We had moved beyond the hierarchical dynamic of my early career and the resentment of the succession period to establish a relationship based on mutual respect and shared commitment to the company's future. As we completed our third year of transformation and prepared to enter our fourth, Reeves Enterprises had been fundamentally reinvented while maintaining the quality foundation established through previous generations. Our financial results reflected this evolution. Revenue had increased by 68% over 3 years. Profit margins had expanded from 14% to 23%, and our market valuation had quadrupled. More importantly, we had established a sustainable business model that balanced manufacturing excellence with technology innovation, creating differentiated value that positioned us for continued leadership through industry evolution. Our platform strategy was generating high-margin recurring revenue while extending our market impact beyond our direct manufacturing capacity. Our integrated solutions approach had deepened client relationships from transactional to strategic, increasing retention and expanding share of wallet. The journey had not been without setbacks and challenges. We had navigated market turbulence, competitive pressures, perception barriers, and internal resistance. Each challenge had tested our commitment to transformation, while ultimately strengthening our resolve and refining our approach. Throughout this journey, I had evolved as a leader, from focusing primarily on proving my capabilities to developing organizational capacity for sustained innovation and adaptation. My leadership style had matured from individual achievement to collective enablement, from demonstrating personal competence to cultivating organizational excellence. The most profound aspect of this evolution was the recognition that leadership represents responsibility rather than vindication. While my initial drive had been partly motivated by desire to prove my worth after being overlooked, mature leadership required transcending personal considerations to focus entirely on organizational purpose and potential. Standing in my office, overlooking both our new innovation campus and the original manufacturing facility visible in the distance, I reflected on the completeness of the journey from overlooked potential to recognized leadership. The nameplate on my door, Alexandra Reeves, Chief Executive Officer, no longer represented personal validation, but rather organizational responsibility. The true achievement wasn't securing the position, but transforming it into a platform for meaningful impact that extended far beyond individual advancement. The path had been neither direct nor easy, requiring persistence through unjust setbacks, and the courage to advocate for my capabilities. Yet that difficult journey had ultimately prepared me to lead transformation with greater effectiveness than might have been possible through a smoother route to authority. The challenges that had once seemed unfair had equipped me with perspectives and resilience essential for navigating organizational evolution through uncertain conditions. As Reeves Enterprises entered its fourth year of transformation under my leadership, I recognized that the most significant changes hadn't been in our business model or facilities, but in our understanding of what we could become, individually and collectively. We had moved beyond the constraints of tradition without sacrificing the values that gave that tradition meaning. We had proven that respect for heritage and embrace of innovation could coexist productively. The difficult path I had traveled to leadership had prepared me uniquely for guiding this evolution. What had once appeared to be rejection had ultimately been preparation for creating a more expansive vision than might otherwise have been possible. The name on the CEO's door wasn't merely a symbol of personal achievement, but a commitment to continued organizational transformation, building on the foundation established through 3 generations, while creating new possibilities for generations yet to come. 4 years into my tenure as CEO, Reeves Enterprises had firmly established its new identity as an integrated solutions provider. Our platform strategy had exceeded initial projections, with over 60 manufacturing partners implementing our technology across 12 industry verticals. The Innovation Campus had become a showcase for industrial transformation, attracting delegations from multinational corporations seeking insights into our evolution from traditional manufacturer to technology-enabled solutions leader. This successful transformation naturally raised the question of our next frontier. During our annual executive leadership retreat, held at a mountain resort 3 hours from headquarters, I posed this challenge directly to my senior team. We've accomplished the core transformation we envisioned 4 years ago, I said, as we gathered for our strategic planning session. The question facing us now is whether we're satisfied with our current scale and scope, or whether we see opportunity for further evolution. What are the boundaries of our ambition? The discussion that followed revealed a clear consensus. Our transformation had positioned us for global expansion in ways that wouldn't have been possible as a traditional manufacturer. Our technology platform and integrated solutions approach could create value across international markets, extending our impact far beyond our historical regional footprint. Our platform is inherently scalable, noted David Chen, our Chief Technology Officer. The marginal cost of supporting additional international clients is minimal compared to the revenue potential. The intellectual property we've developed transcends geographical boundaries in ways physical manufacturing never could. Laura, now our Executive Vice President of Strategy, built on this perspective. We've been approached by manufacturers in Europe and Asia inquiring about platform implementation. There's clearly international demand for our approach, particularly in markets transitioning from pure production to more integrated offerings. The global opportunity was compelling, but it represented a significant departure from our historical approach. For 3 generations, Reeves Enterprises had focused on controlled organic growth within familiar markets. International expansion would introduce complexities of cultural difference, regulatory variation, and extended operational oversight that our organization had never navigated. As discussion continued, I observed the natural division forming among my leadership team, those energized by the global opportunity versus those concerned about potential risks to our core business. Both perspectives had validity. The question wasn't whether international expansion presented opportunity, it clearly did, but whether our organization was prepared to pursue that opportunity while maintaining excellence in our established operations. After 2 days of intensive analysis and debate, we crystallized our strategic direction. Reeves Enterprises would pursue international expansion through a deliberate, phased approach, focusing initially on markets with strong manufacturing traditions, now facing similar transformation imperatives to those we had navigated successfully. Germany, Japan, and South Korea emerged as priority targets based on their industrial base, technology adoption patterns, and cultural affinity for quality-centered manufacturing. Rather than attempting to replicate our full operational model internationally, we would lead with our platform and integrated solutions offerings, the most scalable aspects of our business with the highest potential returns. This approach would establish market presence and client relationships that could potentially support more comprehensive investment if justified by performance and opportunity. The board received this strategy with characteristic careful consideration, probing assumptions and testing projections. Harold Bennett, now in his 70s but still our most perceptive director, posed the essential question. This represents a fundamental shift from the regional focus that has defined Reeves Enterprises for 3 generations, he observed. What gives you confidence that we can succeed internationally when we have no historical experience in these markets? It was a legitimate challenge that deserved thoughtful response rather than defensive reaction. You're right that global expansion represents uncharted territory for our company, I acknowledged. However, our transformation over the past 4 years has fundamentally changed our operational model in ways that actually facilitate international scaling. Our platform technology doesn't require physical proximity to create value. Our solutions, methodology can be adapted to different cultural contexts while maintaining core principles. I continued, addressing the underlying concern directly. More importantly, we've demonstrated our capacity to navigate significant organizational transformation successfully. The shift from regional manufacturer to global solutions provider is substantial, but not more challenging than the evolution we've already accomplished. We've built adaptive capabilities that prepare us for exactly this kind of expansion. My father, still serving as chairman though increasingly focused on community leadership rather than company operations, offered his perspective. When my father expanded beyond the original workshop, many wondered whether quality could be maintained at larger scale. When we built the main manufacturing facility, similar questions arose. Each generation has expanded the boundaries of what Reeves Enterprises could become while maintaining our fundamental values. This represents the natural next horizon. His framing helped contextualize the international strategy within our multi-generational evolution. After further discussion, the board approved the expansion plan with quarterly review milestones to manage risk during implementation. The following weeks were devoted to building our international implementation team. Rather than creating a separate international division that might develop its own isolated culture, we integrated global responsibilities within our existing organizational structure. Each functional leader added international oversight to their portfolio, with dedicated team members focused specifically on our target markets. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.